The music was loud, the crystal chandeliers glittered like frozen stars, and the city's most powerful people laughed beneath a golden afternoon sun streaming through the glass walls. But in the middle of all that wealth and noise, a little girl sat alone as if she were invisible. No one noticed the way her small fingers twisted nervously in her lap. No one noticed how her eyes followed the movement of lips she could not hear. They only noticed her last name. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the quietest moments carry the loudest meaning. It was a bright Saturday afternoon at the grand opening of a new community arts center funded by billionaire tech mogul Everett Holden. Reporters clustered near the stage, eager for photographs. Business leaders posed with champagne glasses. The sun illuminated the marble floors, making everything look almost unreal. It was the kind of daytime event that made headlines and social media reels within minutes. And sitting at a round table near the fountain was Everett's 10-year-old daughter, Maris. Maris Holden had her father's striking gray eyes and her mother's dark curls, tied back neatly with a silver ribbon. She wore a pale blue dress that shimmered softly in the daylight. To anyone watching from afar, she looked like a princess in a palace. But up close, the isolation was clear. She was deaf, profoundly so, and while the world adored her father's money, it didn't quite know what to do with her silence. Adults smiled at her politely, patted her shoulder awkwardly, then turned away when they realized she would not respond to their spoken compliments. Children approached her out of curiosity, only to drift back to the bounce house when conversation required effort. A well-meaning woman bent down and exaggerated her words slowly, as if volume could bridge a silence that lived deeper than sound. Maris had grown used to it, the flicker of confusion, the retreating eyes, the invisible wall. Across the courtyard stood Adrian Vale, holding the small hand of his 5-year-old son, Theo. Adrian didn't belong among the silk suits and diamond bracelets. His blazer was carefully pressed but old. His shoes were polished but scuffed at the edges. He worked 2 jobs, morning shifts at a hardware store and nights driving deliveries, ever since his wife passed away 3 years earlier. Life had reshaped him into something leaner, quieter, but stronger. Theo tugged on his sleeve, pointing toward the fountain. Adrian smiled and guided him over, grateful for a rare afternoon event that was free and family-friendly. He hadn't realized it would be quite this extravagant. As they passed Maris's table, Adrian noticed something others had missed. He saw the way her eyes darted between groups of people, hungry for connection. He saw her shoulders stiffen when another child tried speaking to her, then walked away puzzled. He saw the practiced calm on her face, the kind children learn when they are tired of explaining themselves. Theo ran toward the fountain, laughing. Adrian stayed back, watching carefully. That was when he saw Maris glance toward Theo with quiet longing. Theo waved impulsively. Maris hesitated, then offered a small, shy wave back. Theo approached her table. He said something excitedly, words tumbling out fast. Maris blinked, unable to follow. Theo looked confused. He tried again, louder this time. Still nothing. Adrian felt that familiar ache in his chest, the ache of seeing someone left out. He walked over, crouched beside Theo, and gently touched his shoulder. Then, with calm, practiced hands, Adrian turned to Maris and began to sign. Hello. My name is Adrian. This is my son, Theo. It's a beautiful day, isn't it? Maris froze. Her eyes widened, as if someone had suddenly switched on a light in a dark room. For a second she didn't move at all. Then her hands lifted, tentative at first, then faster, alive with emotion. You know sign language? Her fingers moved quickly, excitement spilling through every motion. Adrian nodded, smiling. He signed back that his late wife had been deaf. He had learned for her, and later for Theo, who was born hearing but grew up in a bilingual home of speech and signs. Signing, to Adrian, was not extraordinary. It was love translated into movement. Maris's entire posture changed. The quiet, withdrawn child dissolved. In her place was a girl bursting with stories. She told Adrian about her favorite books, about how she loved drawing birds because they looked like they were singing even if she couldn't hear them. She told Theo, through Adrian's interpretation, about the koi fish in the fountain and how she liked to imagine they were whispering secrets. People began to notice. A small circle formed at a distance, curiosity pulling them closer. Everett Halden, mid-conversation with a city council member, paused when he saw his daughter laughing, truly laughing. He hadn't seen that expression at public events in years. He excused himself and moved nearer. From across the courtyard, he watched a man in a worn blazer signing fluidly, effortlessly, as if he were speaking the most natural language in the world. He watched Maris lean forward, animated, her hands flying with confidence. For once, she wasn't being accommodated. She was being understood. Everett felt something tighten in his throat. For years, he had built empires. He had funded research labs, startups, entire wings of hospitals. Yet in the quiet corners of his own life, he had struggled with a helpless guilt. He had hired tutors, speech therapists, specialists from around the world. But he couldn't control how society treated his daughter. He couldn't buy genuine connection. And here it was, unfolding in broad daylight, offered freely by a stranger. Adrian never noticed the billionaire approaching. He was too focused on Maris describing her dream of becoming an artist who illustrated silent stories, books without words that anyone could understand. Theo sat cross-legged beside her, mimicking signs clumsily but enthusiastically. When Everett finally stepped forward, Adrian looked up, startled. Everett didn't speak at first. He simply watched the exchange finish. Then he asked softly if Adrian would mind continuing. Adrian signed the question to Maris. She nodded eagerly. So they continued. Under the bright afternoon sun, amid the clinking glasses and flashing cameras, a small pocket of sincerity formed. Guests who had once avoided Maris now leaned closer, asking Adrian how to sign simple phrases. He showed them how to sign "Nice to meet you," "How are you, beautiful day." At first their movements were awkward, hands stiff and uncertain. But Maris beamed at every attempt. For the first time that day, she was not alone at her table. Everett eventually pulled Adrian aside. There was gratitude in his eyes, but also humility. He confessed that despite his resources, he had never managed to create this kind of natural interaction for his daughter in public spaces. Adrian shrugged gently and signed the sentiment to Maris, who watched her father carefully. Kindness doesn't require perfection, Adrian explained. It just requires effort. The event ended hours later, but something fundamental had shifted. Everett asked for Adrian's contact information. Not as a billionaire offering charity, but as a father asking for help. Weeks passed. Adrian was invited to consult with the foundation funding the Arts Center. He proposed something simple yet revolutionary: mandatory sign language workshops for staff, inclusive art programs designed by deaf instructors, and public events that celebrated silence as another form of expression rather than a limitation. Everett listened. Within months, the Arts Center became known not just for its architecture, but for its inclusivity. Children learned basic sign language alongside painting and music. Exhibits featured silent storytelling installations. Maris's drawings were displayed in a sunlit gallery room, each illustration vibrant with motion and feeling. Adrian never expected his life to change. But it did. He was offered a full-time position coordinating community outreach programs, work that aligned with his values and allowed him to spend evenings with Theo instead of driving deliveries. It wasn't charity, it was recognition of skill and heart. More importantly, Maris gained something priceless. At every daytime event that followed, she was surrounded by hands that spoke her language. Children competed to learn new signs. Adults approached her directly, not through her father. One bright afternoon, nearly a year after that first meeting, Maris stood at the front of the art center during a youth showcase. Sunlight streamed through the windows again, warm and golden. She signed a short speech about how silence is not empty, it is simply a different kind of sound. The audience responded not with applause alone, but with raised hands waving in the air, the deaf community's sign of clapping. Adrian stood beside Theo at the back of the room, emotion filling his chest. He remembered the lonely girl at the fountain. He remembered the way the world had overlooked her. All it had taken was one person willing to speak her language. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and comment below. Your engagement helps spread stories that remind us how powerful simple kindness can be. And before we end, take a moment to comment the word "listen" if you believe everyone deserves to be heard, even without sound. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary changes begin in the quietest moments, under the ordinary light of day, when one person chooses not to walk past another's silence, but to step into it, and answer.